The Sarasota County Bar Association is a proud partner in bringing you law in Sarasota. With voluntary membership of over 1,000 lawyers and judges, the Sarasota County Bar Association serves its members and your community by advancing legal professionalism, promoting practice development, and fostering fellowship. Visit www.sarasotabar.com for more information and to use the online directory to find an attorney.
This program is brought to you by a grant from the Community Foundation of Sarasota County and the Sarasota County Bar Association. The Education Channel produces the program and broadcasts from its state-of-the-art campus on Beneva Road. They make this program possible.
Welcome to Law in Sarasota. I'm Andrea McHugh, a circuit judge here in the 12th Circuit, where I'm currently assigned to the Juvenile and Dependency Division. In today's program, I'm going to introduce you to a new and innovative program that has taken off in the Sarasota Dependency Courts. It's called Parents for Parents. Before I do so, it's important to understand the context in which families enter dependency court and the journey that ensues. In Florida, when a child is reported to be in a dangerous or neglectful situation, the Department of Children and Families conducts an investigation. If the investigation reveals that the child is not safe and the department has to remove the child from his or her parents, the child is then placed with a safe caregiver, either a relative or a foster family, as the dependency process in court progresses. During this temporary displacement, the parent is given the opportunity to address whatever issues caused them to be unable to safely care for their child. Oftentimes, this involves substance abuse, circumstances involving domestic violence, mental illness, and sometimes a combination of all three. The Department of Children and Families works to prevent removals by offering safety plans and resources. But sometimes removals are inevitable, and a dependency court case is opened. In a previous Law in Sarasota episode, I introduced you to some guardian ad litem volunteers and attorneys that advocate for the children's best interest in dependency court. While the focus in dependency court is always what is best for the child, the parent from whom the child was removed plays a critical role. It is widely accepted that the best outcome for a child who has been removed from parents is for that child to be reunified with the parent who becomes a safe caregiver. Children that are reunified with their parents feel more secure and stable. They maintain their cultural heritage and develop a sense of identity and belonging. This is why, under Florida law, the Department of Children and Families is required to make reasonable efforts and assist parents in overcoming the obstacles that cause their child to be removed and work towards the goal of reunification. The court oversees this process through dependency court. But here's the reality. Parents who have their children removed are often really struggling with those issues I mentioned before. And having their child removed is an excruciatingly painful experience that they're ill-equipped to really go through rationally. And this is the reason that the program that I'm about to introduce is so important, the Parents for Parents program. It's through NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and they provide support to the parents. And the Parents for Parents advocates are in the best position to provide that support because they have been through the system themselves. They were parents who had their children removed and went through the process of overcoming their struggles to reunify with their children. The advocates meet with a parent on their darkest day at the initial hearing where the judge removes the child, and they support the parent through the whole process. I have invited three individuals today, Nathan Scott from Health and Human Services, Sonia Johnson, and Elizabeth Davis from the Parents for Parents program. And I'm excited for them to tell you about the work that they're doing and the impact that they're having. So I'm going to begin with you, Nathan. And so Nathan has his bachelor's in psychology and sociology from the University of South Florida. He is a certified child protection professional, and his title at the Health and Human Services Division is Child and Family Wellbeing System Coordinator. So welcome, Nathan. It's nice to have you.
Thank you.
All right, and so I'm going to begin with you. Before I introduce Sonia and Elizabeth, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Why don't you tell me, how did the concept of the Parents for Parents program come about, and how did it come to Sarasota?
Great, great question. So thank you again for having me and representing this program, because it is critical, and the work that they're doing is pretty amazing. And so back in 2021, there was a conference that was held virtually because of the COVID pandemic, in which I attended, and I heard a panel of 3 mothers from different parts of the country talking about parent-partner programs, a concept I had never heard about at the time. And I just thought, wow, this is incredible. These were parents, all 3 of them, who had experienced the child welfare system, who were providing peer support in different ways within their different programs. And I said, why don't we have this here? I had never heard of this. And so I reached out to a colleague of mine who I would consider a subject matter expert in peer support, and she had never heard of peer support in the child welfare system. So we embarked on a journey across the country virtually, and talked with all these different programs, with these different parents. Folks were really engaged with us and happy to share all of their studies and the work that they have done. And so we put all of that together, and in December of 2021, we put a PowerPoint presentation together to pitch to the court team. We had judges, our attorneys, leadership from the department, from the Guardian Ad Litem program, from our community-based care organization, and said, is this something that you guys are interested in? And it was an overwhelming yes. There was not one no. And so from there, we developed a steering committee, and in the early part of 2022, all the same people, parent attorneys, leadership folks, judges, Judge Malucci was present for that, and we opted to go with the Parents for Parents program from Washington State. And so from there, we developed kind of what we felt was a good overarching training that we would like the peers to go through, and then started looking for our parents, and that's kind of how it all came together.
Let me ask you, go back to the part where the 3 moms were talking. Sure. And they said something that that hooked you. What was it? What was the need that they had that was being met that you felt was not being met in our community without this program?
Well, great question. So I've been in child welfare since 2006, and I've done case management, I've supervised caseworkers, I've directed programs, and one thing we've always struggled in, even though we've tried really hard, is engaging parents. And doing so effectively. And in fact, when we look at our qualitative metrics across the state, it's not just here locally, we all struggle into the 30 to 40% range of qualitative engagement with parents. And so I'm hearing from these 3 moms how they are engaging parents. It's different than case management engagement. I definitely recognize that, but the parents that they were working with were engaged with these parent peers, and we saw better outcomes. They were getting reunified and more timely than parents who did not have peers. They were not coming back into care once they were reunified. They were attending court hearings more frequently. They were visiting their kids more frequently, and so it was just a no-brainer to me, because that was just an area that we had not been able to tackle.
So, and you mentioned the difference between a case manager interacting with a parent, and a case manager would be from the Department of Children and Families, versus a parent-for-parent advocate. Why would they have a different, impact, or a different ability to forge a relationship with a parent, or how is their relationship different?
I think you kind of hit on it a little bit in the intro, really, where a case manager, their role is to manage the case. So they're not only looking out for the parent and trying to engage the parent, also the child, making sure the child is getting the things that they need, also the out-of-home caregiver, making sure they're getting the things that they need. There's a lot of moving parts for a caseworker, but I think the key thing is that they don't necessarily have the lived experience that the parent is currently going through. So they could say to the parent, I know what you're going through all day long, but it's not really authentic. And so therein lies the biggest difference to me, in that a parent partner can actually say, I know what you're going through, and really mean it, that they've actually been there and they made it to the other side. So I think inherent in that is that there's hope that's built into that. And then the relationship is different in that they're not task oriented, right? They're just, if the parent needs help drafting an email, they're there to help them draft an email. If they need help being supported at court, they're there to support them at court. And so the case managers don't have the capability to kind of meet those needs in that specific way.
Right. And I think also a case manager has the responsibility sometimes to tell the lawyers or the court if a parent is not doing so well on a certain task, and that can kind of create an adversarial sort of relationship when when the case manager has to report something negative about the parent, whereas a parent-for-parent advocate would not do that, and so can continue to maintain that trust. Is that fair?
Very fair.
Yeah.
Very fair.
All right, well, let me just turn to Sonia for a moment. This is Sonia Johnson, who works in the Sarasota courtroom all the time as a parent-for-parent advocate. She's also a recovery care specialist, and she is the program coordinator for Parents for Parents through the NAMI organization. So why don't you tell us just briefly about NAMI and how Parents for Parents landed there?
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to be here. So my name is Sonia, and I work for NAMI of Sarasota and Manatee counties. NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. It's the largest grassroots, peer-led mental health organization in the nation. So what's really special about that is that it's not a clinical organization. Everybody at NAMI is a peer, meaning that they all have lived experience with something. And so when Nathan and my supervisor, Sarah, were considering the Parents for Parents program, it was just such a natural fit to be at NAMI because it is what they do. So they train peers. It's a great space for peers to grow in and to learn in. And so it was just such a natural fit for the Parents for Parents program to be here.
So really that concept of credibility, because you've actually gone through the same struggles and overcome the same thing and have the same barriers and obstacles, that really resonates with someone in such a different way than a professional who studied that in a book. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
All right. Oh, excellent. Well, thank you. Well, Sonia, I would love for you to tell the audience a little bit about your personal journey and your what we're calling lived experience as a parent going through the dependency system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I started my lived experience with the child welfare system in 2014. And what led me into the system was substance misuse and domestic violence. Now, I've been married for 15 years. And so by that point in time, my husband and I had been married for a while, and we had just made some bad choices that led us into a position where we were using and we couldn't stop, even though we wanted to. I mean, I wanted to be a good parent. I love my kids more than anything in the world, and yet I couldn't stop using substances for them. And so in 2014, initially I started a non-judicial case plan. And so they wanted me to complete certain tasks and maintain drug screens and do all of the things that I needed to do, and I wanted to do those things.
So let me go back. I just want to say, so at the beginning when I said that the Department of Children and Families will often try to not remove children or a child, and they'll try to offer services on the front end. That's what you're talking about. So so they kind of came into your life, you recognized there's an issue, and they offered you some services. Is that right?
Absolutely. And to be fair, they gave me a lot of chances. Initially, it started with an investigation. They closed the investigation, and then a few days later reopened an investigation, and then they gave me the opportunity to work a non-judicial case plan. As long as I would complete certain tasks, I could keep custody of my kids. But I just couldn't stop using, even though I really, really wanted to. And so they wound up closing the case about 8 months later in non-compliance. But at the time, my husband and I had decided that the best thing for my kids' safety, my two boys, I have two boys, would be to go live with my mom, because we knew we wouldn't be able to stop, even though, again, we wanted to.
Well, and I think it's important to recognize that addiction is a disease, and it's very powerful, and it a lot of times cannot be handled individually or even with some minor interventions. Sometimes it needs something much more significant, and that doesn't mean you don't love your children or want what's best for your children. It just means that you're suffering from a disease that needs treatment, right?
Right. Yeah. And so that, what you just named, is exactly what I struggled with, because I couldn't understand why I couldn't stop using for my kids. And because I had all of this self-hatred for that, I continued to use because it was the only coping skill I had. And so that led me down a much darker path for many years, coming in and out, seeing my kids infrequently, going to visit them at my mom's, but never being able to really get it together. And so in 2018, I wound up getting arrested. And it was truly the best thing that ever happened to me. I got arrested on my birthday. I didn't think it was a birthday present then, but when I look back, it was the greatest birthday present I could have been given, because it led me to the sequence of events in my life that led me to finally find recovery. And so from 2018 until 2019, I went in and out of jail over and over again. And every time they would release me, they would say the same thing. Just don't use, report to probation. As long as you can do that, you could stay out of jail. And so I knew if I used that I would go back to jail, but I didn't have any coping skills. I didn't have a support system. I didn't know anybody that had ever successfully stopped using drugs. And so every time I went out of jail, I went back to people, places, and things. And every time that I did that, I wound up going back to jail. And so eventually, on one of my arrests, I had a judicial case plan put on me. My probation officer knew that I would come around my mom's house from time to time, and that was unsafe. And so they started a judicial case plan. And for the first several months of my case plan, I didn't know what to do. So I ran and I used, because those were my coping skills, until eventually I got arrested again. And it was the best thing that could have ever happened, because while I was in jail, I finally, for the first time, met people who had lived experience. And they told me they understood me. They had been an inmate in the jail. They had lost custody of their children. They were convicted felons, but yet they had completely turned their life around. And they were able to come back into the jail and carry a message of recovery. And they got their kids back, and they had great jobs, and they had all of the things that I wanted, but I could just never figure out how to obtain. And so they told me that they would help me do what they had if I was willing to do the work. And so at the time, it didn't look like that was going to happen, because I had been in and out of jail so many times. I was looking at going to prison. But I got an opportunity at the very last minute to go to treatment. And by that point in time, I was bought in. I was ready to do anything that I had to do to get my kids back and to have what those people with lived experience had.
So you see these people who have overcome the same things that you're going through, and they have succeeded, and they're willing to give you the recipe, essentially, right? So, okay, good. So that's when things really turned around for you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So can I just ask you, at the time that you were initially offered the judicial case plan, so now there are these tasks that you're going to have to perform in order to reunify with your children. Did it seem daunting? Was it something that seemed impossible? Like, what was your perspective when it was first introduced to you?
It seemed impossible, because I was in active use at that point in time, and I didn't know how to turn it off. And so they wanted me to not use, to pass drug screens, to go to classes, to get a stable job, and to get housing. And all of those things were just completely out of my reach at that point in time. I had no idea how to do that. And because of that, I thought I was broken. I thought I was just a bad parent, and that's why I couldn't do it. I didn't realize that actually I just had a substance use problem. And the science behind that shows that when you're in it, you can't just stop. And so that's why I'm so grateful that I went to jail, because that stopped me. And then I was able to have enough time to get some clarity to realize that I wanted something different.
So fast forward to you becoming a parent-for-parent advocate, and now you have the opportunity to meet parents when they're right at that beginning moment. And I think I called it their darkest day, when their child's been removed. And although yours was more of a gradual removal, a lot of parents are sort of shocked by what's happening and confused and overwhelmed. And so how do you engage with those parents at the beginning? And then we'll talk about how you continue to engage with them along the way. And how do you think that would have been different for you had you had a Sonia there to sort of explain things?
When I first meet a parent, the very first thing that I do is separate myself from everybody else in the conversation. I'm not the person that took your child away. I don't work for the courts or the Department of Children and Families. I'm a parent who's been in your shoes, and I give them a little tiny snippet of my story and let them know that I made it to the other side. And I know they're not a bad person, they're not a bad parent. Yes, they've made some mistakes, but reunification is possible, and I'm proof of that. and I'm willing to walk alongside of you as you navigate through this journey. And just that alone really helps them to let their guard down and find that hope. Because when I was in jail, it was the women with lived experience that gave me hope. So hope gives us strength. And when they hear that in the very beginning, I believe that it gives them the strength to keep carrying on. And we continue to work with them the whole way.
One thing I've observed presiding over dependency cases is that it's a very unique courtroom in that at the beginning of the case, everybody has the same goal, and the same goal is reunification. It just may not be the same idea on how that should come or when that should come. And so one of the things that I've noticed is very difficult for a parent that has just had their child removed. They might be actively using or having some other mental issues or control and power issues in a domestic violence relationship that are influencing their perspective. But one thing that they seem to not understand is that actually everyone wants you to reunify, and we all are on the same team here. So do you feel like you, with your sort of neutral position, are able to help explain that in a way that they can appreciate it and maybe let their guard down to be able to be more open to the things that are being asked of them?
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I love about NAMI and the Parents for Parents program is that we can educate the parents on the process of what's going on, who all of these people are, what their goals are. And so we let them know that reunification is the goal. And we try to help the parent to build collaboration between the professionals and the parents and to shift their thinking from anger and resentment to acceptance and personal responsibility. And I would love to say when I first meet them, they feel that way, but they don't.
It's a process.
It
right?
is a process. Yeah. But with time, we offer them one-on-one mentoring and our Dependency 101 class that teaches them about the process. They do start to understand that, and they feel supported when they go to court and when they go to a staffing or a case planning conference. And I really think that helps build that collaboration.
Right, because the process itself involves terminology, it involves a million different players. It's difficult for even lawyers or judges that are new to sort of navigate and figure out. And so when you have an individual that's trying to do all of that while they're also maybe trying to find their referral to their substance abuse provider, and they're also trying to, maybe they don't have a car and they need to take the bus to trying to get a job, and just the number of things that they're sort of dealing with on a day-to-day basis can be very overwhelming. So tell me more about how the Dependency 101 course sort of helps when they're filtering all that information. How does it help them with the court process?
That's such a great question. So I love our Dependency 101 class. It's a one-time 2-hour class where parents will learn everything that they need to know to make it through it successfully. And thank you for the video that you've done for us, because that makes a big difference. So when a parent comes to our Dependency 101 class, they hear from the different stakeholders that they see in the courtroom. So they hear from you, or they hear from Nick Smith with the Children's Legal Services, or a parent attorney, a guardian ad litem. And then when they go into the courtroom, those are the people that they see, and they hear Nick say, the greatest day in my career is a successful reunification. And so that helps to build that trust, that collaboration. And the other thing is we teach them what to do during visitations, what to do during court, how to log on to Zoom court, the whole process, what each hearing means, the timeline of everything, so they know what to expect at each step of the journey. And I like to think of the Parents for Parents program as kind of like the in-between. Mm-hmm. We're there in between the case plan task. We're there in between the one staffing to the next staffing, and we can support them through that. Mm-hmm. So the things that they learn in the dependency class, we then layer it in our conversations and in our mentoring sessions, and we reteach them that stuff as we continue to go through the journey, because education is power. So the more they know, the better equipped they are to make the right choices.
Right, and they're really dealing with some sort of complex dynamics when you think about, older children that are removed, and then the parent is visiting with them and the child is going through something, but they have to be careful about what they talk about, because you don't want to pressure the child either. So that can be sort of a dicey line to walk, and I'm sure that being able to sort of give them some guidance on those visitations is probably very important and helpful. Mm-hmm. All right, well, Sonia, let me ask you one final question before I turn to Elizabeth. Overall, what impact are you seeing in terms of the outcome?
Can I share a story with you?
Yes.
Okay. So overall, we see parents who engage faster. They have hope quicker and throughout the whole process, even when something bad happens, because we're able to explain what's happening. But we had a parent that we were working with who had a termination of parental rights, and her rights had been terminated for many years, and we were able to support her in the process of having her parental rights reinstated, which is really unheard of. And it was just such an amazing thing that we got to be a part of. Of course, the parent did all of the hard work, but to see that gives us hope, gives the other parents that we're working with hope. I mean, we've worked with parents who've been at their initial advisory hearing where they felt like they should give up, and then we do the Dependency 101 class and the support group, and we just don't give up. And then they don't give up. And the parent that I'm speaking of has actually been reunified, and her case has just been closed. So we see those outcomes, and we can share things with our parents. You know, this parent was struggling with this, and now they've overcome it, even if we don't have that direct lived experience, and it gives them hope. So we're seeing them reunify faster, engage faster. Their termination of parental rights happen less often. But it's just been amazing all the way around.
And while that's amazing for the parent's perspective, and really we have to think about what does that do for the child. So we talked at the beginning about how the best outcome for the child is for them to be reunified for their natural parent. So even if it happens years down the road, that healing that happens when a parent steps up and becomes the parent that they're supposed to be, the way that that impacts that child's life and probably, you know, prevents the future cycle of it happening again is a really magnificent thing to see happen. So Elizabeth Davis is a parent who had her child, right?
Yes.
Removed. That's right. Removed and was successfully reunified. But the cool thing is that Elizabeth had a parent-for-parent advocate by her side the whole time. So, and now Elizabeth is a parent-for-parent advocate. So why don't you tell us from your perspective how the parent-for-parent program impacted your journey?
So I think every parent has a different journey, and for me personally, one of the things that I really loved was that Sonia was able to help me with things that were really out of the box. So my baby was 45 days old when she was removed from my care, and I was really stressed about how often she was hearing my voice and my fiance's voice and things like that. And she actually helped us to make a DVD. I came to her with this idea, and I said, I want to do positive affirmations in me and Dad's voice with lullabies behind it. I'm not techie. How do I do this? And she was like, well, you are with the right girl. And she helped me make that. And, you know, if ever I was stressed out about something, I had a lot of case management changes that really stressed me out. And sometimes I didn't understand the way things were moving and just different things like that. And she was able to support me through every one of them. She let me vent to her. She let me be she was a sounding board for me. And she really just, I don't know, we became very close during that process because I knew I could trust her. I knew that if something was going on, I could talk to her about it, and I didn't have to worry about saying things the wrong way, and I could just get it all out of my system so that I didn't take it to my case manager. So when I was frustrated, I had someone to vent to, so I wasn't disrupting the relationship I had.
And do you feel like that led to your success?
I do. I mean, I feel like it was a big part of it, but I also think that one of the amazing things that not necessarily that I utilize, but that I'm excited about is that Sonia and I have a lot of experience of services that we received or things that we received that are outside of the scope of what SCC and ECC is sometimes able to offer. And I think that that is really instrumental as well.
Right, being able to connect parents with the right resources. That's another thing that you do very effectively.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, as you can tell, the Parents for Parents program is making a tremendous difference in the outcomes of dependency cases for both parents and children. I'd like to thank the panelists for coming today and discussing this important topic. If you'd like more information about Parents for Parents, you can visit the website at NAMI-SarasotaManatee.org. Thank you for watching today.
For more than 40 years, the Community Foundation of Sarasota County has partnered with estate planning attorneys and their clients to unlock possibilities for everyone who calls our region home. Our motto, Be the One, reflects our deeply held belief that anyone can be a philanthropist and give back to our community regardless of means. Visit www.cfsarasota.org or call 941-955-3000 for more information.